During the 1940s, Mexico-Americans began entering the public eye. Unfortunately, the spotlight was very negative. Many Mexicans at the time were gang affiliates, and this set in the mind of Caucasian Americans that Hispanics were by nature angry and violent. Many of these gang members were outfitted in a style of clothing labeled the Zoot suit. They felt that the suit stood against them and what they fought for and believed in. So officers, military men, and normal civilians marched into the streets of California to battle and clash with these gang members, and in general the Hispanic community, in a set of riots by the name of the Zoot Suit Riots. Whilst the riots took place, American people spectating began to condemn the actions of the Caucasian citizens for attacking people because of their ethnicity. These anti-ideals began to spread throughout the state and, like today, brought attention to racism in America. Many Mexicans that lived in World War II America, in this case the city of Los Angeles, experienced day-to-day racism, as white people pushed the idea that Mexicans were violent and hateful because of their ancestry. This is what many speculate is what caused the riots. Evidence and sources like a close examination of the social and political climate of Los Angeles in the early 1940s revealed that a combination of factors were responsible for the riots. All these factors, however, reflect the city's attitude towards minorities in general, more specifically the Mexican-American population of Los Angeles, and Captain Edward Duran Arias of the Los Angeles County Sheriff Department argued that under the Aztec blood, Mexican-Americans were more violent than and therefore biologically inferior to white Americans. Alongside lawful tension from the Sleepy Lagoon incident, where, quote, a clash between the Belvedere gang and the Palo Verde gang in East Los Angeles on August 1st, 1942, resulted in the slaying of a young Mexican-American named Jose Diaz, whose body was found beside a swimming hole called the Sleepy Lagoon. Not only does the evidence here explain the tension between white and brown people, it explains the tension between authority and Zoot Suit. The riots had lasted for 5 days and consisted of clashes between Mexicans and high heads of authority, and the skirmishes would only end when the military got involved. The Zoot Suit riots were a culmination of a series of altercations between panchucos, panchucas, and servicemen, many of whom were stationed in neighborhoods with high concentrations of Mexican Americans. Gangs and gangsters usually originated from those highly concentrated Mexican neighborhoods. Thus, police were stationed there, and a lot of gangsters meant a lot of Zoot Suiters. With his relatively long hair and flamboyant costume, the black or brown male Zooter appeared to be the antithesis of the clean-cut and uniformed white serviceman. The outbreaks of violence continued from June 5th to June 8th. On June 8th, the Los Angeles City Council passed an ordinance making the wearing of the Zoot Suit a misdemeanor. The riots ended after downtown Los Angeles was placed off-limits to military personnel on June 9th. The violence of the riots only ended when military interference was needed, and the wearing of the Zoot Suit was punishable with a misdemeanor. The effects of the riots would not take long to be felt by the people in the city and around the country. After the riots, many people looked into the event to find a cause. Many were slumped and settled with the popular theory that communists, a people with an ideology that combated the United States' capitalist nature, wanted to recruit the panchucos wearing the outfit. But like today, the violent clashes helped open people's eyes to see the racism in the country, and at the time, helped Chicanos develop their culture as they were too American to be Mexican and too Mexican to be American, so they became Mexican-American. The reaction to the Zoot Suit riots were helpful for the fight for equality, as it helped many people to see that in actuality minorities were treated very poorly in major areas of society. But some of it wasn't helpful, like the ban on Zoot Suits and blaming communism in the place of obvious racism. Racism is still prevalent, and many still hold those disgusting ideas from so long ago. But people are fighting and voices are being heard all across the world, standing against these ideas, just as the people of America and the Hispanic citizens began to be heard. The riots aren't as popular as other civil rights actions, so the effect it has is small, but it'll always be remembered by Hispanics to push them to find their way and push against the leeches of racism.